Hey, what's up guys? It's just me, Eduardo, here with another lens video, and this time I'm going to be discussing a Sony lens. Not too long ago, I made the switch by getting myself the Sony A7 III, and one of the lenses I got with it was the 28mm f2 lens, also from Sony. I wanted to make this video to share 4 reasons why I like this lens, and also at the same time, hopefully, help anybody that might be considering getting this lens. Keep in mind that the following reasons I go over apply for both photography and video use, and at the end I will also be going over a couple of minor complaints I have about this lens. So let me begin by talking about the first thing that becomes apparent when you hold this lens, and that is its size and weight. This was a big reason why I went with this lens, because having switched over to a mirrorless camera that is meant to be lighter than a traditional DSLR, I wanted a lens that would complement the A7 III and also keep the weight at a comfortable level. When I've gone out to shoot with this lens and camera combo, I've not had any complaints in terms of the weight or size because it doesn't feel heavy or too lightweight, and the lens does not stick out far in front as others. I especially like this lens because it means that I can pair it up with my A7 III and my gimbal in order to get smooth cinematic shots. For those of you wondering which gimbal it is I currently use, it is the Zhiyun Crane V2, and it is able to handle this setup with no problem at all. The second reason why I like this lens, it's because of its wide aperture of f2. And as you may already know, the wider the aperture on your lens is, the more out of focus your backgrounds or foregrounds will be, and it also helps to add some isolation and depth to your pictures and video. So shooting at f2, I am able to take cool looking pictures where my subjects are sharp in focus, while the out of focus areas are smooth and creamy, providing isolation between my subject and the environment. This ability to blow the background out of focus comes in handy for me, especially when I'm shooting video, because I'm able to utilize it to create some cool looking shots like these. And that max aperture of f2 also gives me more freedom to shoot in low light situations. So when I decided to get the A7 III, I knew that I wanted to get a pair of prime lenses to go with it, and I had already decided on the 85mm f1.8. I just now needed a wider lens. Ideally, I wanted to get a 24mm lens, but I couldn't find a full frame 24mm lens for a Sony mount at the time. I know that Sony has the 24-70 f4 lens, but for me that wasn't a serious consideration because, for one, it was way more expensive, it was heavier, and I did not want to spend a lot of money on a lens that can only stop down to f4. My final 2 choices were the Rokinon 35mm f2.8 or this Sony 28mm f2. Ultimately, I went with this lens because I figured 28mm was a wide enough focal length to work with, where I can get almost as much as 24, but with a bit of a zoom. I could still get a tighter frame that would come close to a 35mm look by using the A7 III Super 35 mode, which crops in on the sensor by 1.5, effectively turning the 28mm into a 42mm lens, albeit in crop mode, which means you don't get the full 24 megapixels of the sensor. Now I will say this, that shooting at 28mm definitely does not feel wide enough at times, but when you consider its price point, its size and weight, and the ability to stop down to f2, I see it as a trade-off, and personally I'm okay with it instead of having to go out and buy a more expensive and heavier lens. The final and 4th reason why I like this lens is because of how well it performs with the A7 III when it comes to autofocusing. Part of this mainly relies on the A7 III's autofocusing system, but credit can also be given to the lens here because I've also used the Tamron 28-75mm lens and noticed a difference in the speed and accuracy between the Sony lens and the Tamron. On the video side, it is of great help, particularly when I'm using my gimbal and it becomes almost impossible to constantly be pulling focus manually. Okay, so now let's go ahead and talk about the negatives, the minor complaints that I have about this lens. And if I'm being honest, I really had to think about it and try to come up with some negatives about this lens because honestly, For me personally, I really don't have many gripes about this lens. But let me go ahead and just point these out anyways, because these minor complaints might be bigger things for other people. And let me start with the first one, which is that this lens does not have built-in image stabilization. Now, the reason why I said this is a minor complaint for me and it might be a bigger one for other people is because on the A7 III, I already have built-in image stabilization in the camera body. Whereas other people that are considering this lens might not be so fortunate. This might be a drawback for them because they're not going to have that ability to capture smooth footage or take pictures without any shakes visible in their footage. The second minor complaint I have with this lens is the fact that it does not have a switch to toggle between auto and manual focus. I know that having this feature on a lens is very useful for many people because if you want to switch from auto to manual, you can just simply toggle on the switch on the side and you're done. But unfortunately with this lens, you're gonna have to go into the menus and switch it there. For myself, this isn't much of a big issue because I have on my A7 III the C3 button programmed to toggle between autofocus and manual focus, because that is a feature that I am constantly using. I'm always switching between auto and manual, especially if I'm shooting in low light situations and the autofocusing system isn't doing a good job. I'll just hit the C3 and then boom, I'll just rack focus and leave it there. But I will admit that it would have been nice to have a switch on this lens, but like I said, it's not a big deal. All right guys, that's gonna go ahead and do it for this video on the Sony 28mm f2 lens. As always, if you found this video remotely helpful and you enjoyed it, go ahead and give me a like, and also let me know in the comments which is currently your favorite lens and which camera body you use it with. I would definitely love to know what lens and camera combo you guys are out there shooting with, and if you would like to see more videos and pictures I've taken using the A7 III, go ahead and check out my Instagram at justmeeduardo and let me know what you think. But as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. See ya.